Something dark and terrifying is happening right now, and few are noticing. The third prophecy of Fatima, kept secret for decades, may finally be coming true, and the signs are unfolding before our eyes. What is happening in the United States is not a mere coincidence. It is the harbinger of something much greater, something that could change the fate of humanity forever. Why did the Catholic Church hide this prophecy for so long? What was so disturbing that only in 2000 did Pope John Paul II have the courage to reveal it? What could be so devastating that religious authorities hesitated for years before allowing the world to know the truth? Now the time of ignorance is over, and those who are not prepared may be caught off guard. The warnings were clear. Our Lady appeared to the three shepherd children in Fatima, Portugal, not only to bring hope, but to deliver crucial messages about the future of humanity. War, persecution, the advance of an evil that would spread across the world like an impossible-to-stop shadow. And now, the events that once seemed impossible have begun to happen. The clock is ticking. Has destiny already been written? Or is there still time to avoid the worst? If you want to know the whole truth about hidden prophecies and what is to come, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. What we will reveal in the next few minutes could change your view of the world forever. Lucia dos Santos lived until she was 97 years old, but the weight of the secrets she carried never left her. While her cousins Francisco and Jacinta departed in childhood, victims of the Spanish flu pandemic, Lucia was the solitary guardian of the revelations that Our Lady entrusted to her. It was only 23 years after the apparitions that the Bishop of Fatima ordered her to record everything she knew. The first two secrets were written quickly, but the third, the most feared, she hesitated to reveal. What was so devastating about this prophecy? What could be so terrible that even the Church dared not reveal it immediately? Only under intense pressure did Lucia write the message and seal it in an envelope, with instructions for it to be opened only in 1960. The justification? The humanity will only be ready to understand its content at that time. But were we prepared? The years passed, and the Church kept the secret locked away, fueling theories and speculations. Only in 2000 did Pope John Paul II allow the world to finally know the third revelation. But was what was revealed really everything that Our Lady had warned about? Or was something even more obscure kept secret? The three prophecies of Fatima were not simple messages. They were direct warnings about the future of humanity. The first secret, a terrifying vision of hell, where tormented souls screamed amidst the flames. The second, the announcement that the First World War would end, but that a new, even more destructive war would come if humanity did not repent. In 1939, as predicted, World War II broke out. But it was the third secret that caused the greatest terror. Lucia described an angel holding a flaming sword, ready to strike a fatal blow upon the earth. The flames that came from his blade seemed destined to consume the entire world. But they were stopped by a powerful light emanating from the right hand of Our Lady. The angel then shouted repeatedly, "Penance! Penance! Penance!" What does this vision mean? Are we on the verge of the final fulfillment of this prophecy? And the most important, is there something that has not yet been revealed to the world? Enveloped by an intense light, the three shepherd children witnessed a terrifying vision. A bishop dressed in white, followed by religious leaders and faithful, walked through a destroyed city. He prayed slowly, carrying the weight of the souls he encountered along the way. His destination was the top of a dark mountain, where a huge cross awaited him. But before he could reach her, something terrible happened. Suddenly, soldiers emerged from the shadows and targeted him with merciless gunfire. Not just him, but bishops, priests, and faithful were killed beside him. Above, two angels collected his blood in crystal chalices, pouring it over the ascending souls. This was the third secret of Fatima, a prophecy so dark that it remained hidden for decades. When it was finally revealed in 2000, many associated the vision with the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II, which occurred on May 13, 1981. the anniversary of the first apparition. But there was something strange. In the vision, the Pope died. In reality, he survived. Does this mean the prophecy has not yet been fulfilled? The then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, future Pope Benedict XVI, stated that the vision was a warning, not a fixed fate. But was everything revealed? While these questions echo, we return to the beginning. On May 13, 1917, Our Lady appeared and asked the shepherds to return every month. On June 13, she asked them to add a special prayer to the rosary and revealed Jacinta and Francisco would depart soon, but Lucia would have to remain. Her mission was just beginning, and maybe ours too. Is something still hidden? What hasn't been told to us? In the third apparition, on July 13, 1917, Our Lady revealed a terrifying vision of hell. The three shepherd children witnessed souls in torment, trapped in a fire that never extinguished. It was then that Mary made an appeal. God desired the world to turn to his Immaculate Heart to prevent more souls from falling into this terrible fate. In addition to this vision, an even darker prophecy was delivered. Our Lady warned that, if there was no repentance and prayer, a new devastating war would occur. Russia, if it were not consecrated, would spread its errors throughout the world, inciting persecutions and wars. The words were clear, but would the world heed this warning? The fourth apparition, on August 19th, occurred unexpectedly. The local administrator arrested the three shepherd children, trying to prevent them from meeting Mary. But 6 days later, in a distant field, she appeared again. This time, her message was an urgent request. Sacrifices and prayers were necessary, for many souls were lost because there was no one to intercede for them. On September 13th, something extraordinary happened in front of the crowd that was following the visionaries. White roses fell from the sky, but disappeared before touching the ground. Lucia, seeing the chance, asked Maria to heal the sick. The response was straightforward. Some would be healed, others would not, for everything followed divine will. The last apparition took place on October 13, 1917, and was witnessed by a crowd of between 70,000 and 100,000 people. On that day, the sky transformed, and the miracle of the sun occurred. The stars spun and danced in the sky in an inexplicable manner, visible from kilometers away. Even journalists, who were there just to cover the event, reported witnessing something impossible to explain by science. Mary revealed herself as the Lady of the Rosary and made a final appeal. Humanity needed to change. The Creator was already deeply offended, and conversion was the only way to avoid the worst. The apparitions and messages were not intended for the powerful, but for three children who led a simple life in an isolated village. Without influence, without knowledge of the outside world, without anything but faith. And they were the ones chosen to carry a message that would span generations. The faith in the village of Fatima was simple, passed down from generation to generation. Lucia's mother taught catechism at home, and Lucia herself passed on the prayers to her siblings. Her parents practiced devotion with daily prayers, attending Mass, and acts of charity. Since she was little, Lucia showed a strong desire to be close to God. Francisco, silent and contemplative, saw the divine presence in nature, viewing the sunset as a sign of the Creator. Jacinta, in turn, saw in the moonlight the reflection of Our Lady's light. The innocence of the children manifested in simple gestures. Jacinta called the birds by name and let them perch on her head. They lived their faith in a pure way, without worries beyond the love of God. But everything would change on a summer day in 1916. While they were praying, an intense light appeared among the trees. It shone like crystal, brighter than snow in the sun. The children were paralyzed in front of the unexpected apparition. It was the angel of peace, sent to prepare them for a mission that would transform their lives. Between the spring and winter of 1916, the angel appeared 3 times. He spoke to them about God's desire for devotion and prayer. In one of the meetings, he offered the body and blood of Christ, teaching them to sacrifice themselves for sinners. He explained that only intercession could save those who turned away from God. This call became even more intense on May 13, 1917, when an even stronger light shone over the Cova de Iria. The Virgin Mary, radiant as the sun, appeared before the three shepherd children. In the following months, she would always return on the 13th, reinforcing her message: total dedication to God and acceptance of suffering as atonement for the sins of the world. The fate of the three was sealed, but what would come next would change everything. The visions granted to the three shepherd children were not just messages, but a direct call to humanity. Through them, they understood that God's love manifests throughout history, even when ignored or rejected. Our Lady showed them that suffering often arises from indifference to divine grace, but that God never abandons his children. From the first encounter with the celestial light, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta decided to keep the secret of what they had seen. But Jacinta, deeply moved by the beauty of Our Lady, could not contain her emotion. Just like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, who could not contain their joy upon seeing the risen Christ, Jacinta shared her experience with others. Over time, the stories of the apparitions spread, attracting crowds to the Cova de Iria. However, with fame also came trials. The three were confronted, ridiculed, and accused of lying. Some believed they were seeking notoriety, others saw them as a threat. Even within their own home, they faced doubts. Except for Francisco and Jacinta's father, who stood by them. The greatest challenge came on August 13, 1917. On that day, the local administrator, a man of skeptical thought and averse to faith, appeared unexpectedly. He wanted to extract from them the secret of the apparitions. With deceitful words, he promised to take them to the Cova de Iria. But instead, he led them to an isolated place. There, he pressured them with intense interrogations, trying to force them to reveal what Our Lady had entrusted to them. When he did not get answers, he imprisoned them alongside criminals and even threatened them with torture. He said that if they remained silent, they would be burned alive in boiling oil. Even in the face of fear, the three did not yield. Francisco, with his unwavering serenity, replied, "If they kill us, it doesn't matter. Let's go to heaven." This was the first great test of faith they faced. But others were yet to come. Just as Moses had to take off his sandals before the burning bush, Francisco, Jacinta, and Lucia were consumed by a flame that never extinguished. The light they received strengthened them, awakening in them a call to intercede for humanity. For the world, they were a reflection of God's light. For God, they became instruments of His mercy. Their lives were transformed into daily offerings, where each gesture, each prayer, each sacrifice was dedicated to the redemption of sinners. Each one followed this mission in a unique way. Francisco, with his contemplative soul, sought God in silence and deep prayer. Jacinta, with her vibrant faith, transformed even the smallest acts into sacrifices of love. Lucia, in turn, took on the responsibility of bringing to the world the message entrusted to them, dedicating herself to the consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Lucia remained to witness and spread the message, but Francisco and Jacinta lived only long enough to fulfill their mission. At the end of 1918, both fell ill due to a severe epidemic. Our Lady had already promised them that they would soon be in heaven, and they accepted their fate without fear. Although their lives were short, they were marked by a deep and unwavering love. Who could have imagined that three children from an isolated village would become symbols of a celestial calling? The signs of prophecy. What is happening in the world? The third prophecy of Fatima has always been the subject of intense debates. While some see it as a warning of future persecutions, others believe its fulfillment is already underway. Many point to troubling signs that seem to fit the revelations made over a century ago. Sign number 1. Moral and spiritual crisis. The decline of Christian values has been widely discussed. The advance of secularism and the heated debates on moral issues, such as abortion and same-sex marriage, have created divisions within the Church and other religious denominations. For some, this polarization is a reflection of the spiritual crisis mentioned in the prophecy. Sign number 2, scandals in the church. The last few decades have brought to light numerous cases of abuse within the Catholic Church in the United States. These scandals have shaken the trust of the faithful and created a crisis of leadership and faith. For many, this is one of the signs that the Church is facing a period of trial, according to some interpretations of the Fatima prophecy. Signal number 3, geopolitical and economic tensions. Global conflicts, the rise of economic instability, and disputes between nations have led the world into a state of uncertainty. But are they just common disturbances, or the beginning of something much greater? In recent years, the United States has faced increasing polarization, social instability, and economic uncertainties. With pandemics, climate change, and even nuclear threats looming over the world, many believe these events are the prelude to something much greater. A scenario that seems to align with the prophecies of Fatima. Signal number 4. Natural disasters and climate change. Devastating hurricanes, uncontrollable fires, and unprecedented storms have intensified. Some theologians and prophecy scholars relate these catastrophes to divine warnings, suggesting that humanity is being alerted to change its ways before it is too late. Sign number 5. Religious persecution and intolerance. In the United States, the perception is growing that Christians, especially Catholics, are increasingly facing marginalization. Restrictions on religious practices, debates about freedom of worship, and disguised censorship are interpreted as a silent persecution, reflecting the suffering predicted in some interpretations of the third secret. Sign number 6. Pandemic and impact on faith. The recent pandemic profoundly altered religious institutions, closed churches, interrupted celebrations, and the loneliness of many believers have shaken the faith of countless people. Isolation and widespread loss can be seen as part of the Great Tribulation announced in the messages of Fatima. Signal number 7. Food crisis and economic collapse. The rising inflation and the fear of food shortages are part of a scenario that is shaping up as a possible crisis of alarming proportions. Food insecurity and global financial disarray are factors that fit into the vision of an unstable future. Besides the scandals that have shaken its credibility, the Catholic Church faces intense debates on issues such as the role of women, the celibacy of priests, and the acceptance of new ideologies. This fragmentation between conservatives and progressives strengthens the idea that a deep spiritual crisis is already underway. In light of all this, the call of Our Lady of Fatima continues to resonate. Francisco, Jacinta, and Lucia were chosen to intercede for humanity, and their mission still resonates today. Their unwavering faith, even in the face of pain and persecution, is a living example of absolute devotion. Our Lady asked for prayer to be intensified. Her appeal was not just for days of suffering, but for all of life. The Rosary, the most powerful spiritual weapon, should not be just a refuge in times of crisis, but a daily commitment. The prophecies of Fatima do not replace the scriptures, but are a call to reflection. In times of uncertainty, the answer remains the same: trust in God, persistence in doing good, and unwavering faith, as the three little visionaries demonstrated until the end.